Sonoma County, and to all you manly men out there, a hearty and healthy Irish hello. You're listening to the Celtic Coach radio show, an Irish talk show for men and all things manly. And a welcome to all the ladies listening out there today. Of course, you're listening on KOWS LP 92.5 FM, Occidental California. We are the voice, and I do mean the voice of West Sonoma County. So welcome, everyone. We, boy, oh boy, oh boy. Danny, boy, oh boy, even. We got a great show for you today. And I know a lot of you have been looking forward to this one. Sent out a newsletter last week letting you know a little bit about this next lady. Today's show is called The Secret of Letting Go. And our guest is a beautiful Irish lass by the name of Cathy Casey. She's going to be coming in to talk about how do we move through life with a little more grace, with a little more ease, with a little more flow. She's going to be talking about things like addicted to results, the human experience explained. How can we let go of the controls? You know, now I might be the only one out there. There may be others, but I'm a control freak at the best of times. I like certainty. And of course, the biggest joke in the world is that we live in a world of uncertainty where nothing is certain except maybe death and taxes. We're also going to be talking about where does my stress come from and why is it that we truly do our best to fight the unknown at every corner of life. We're also going to be talking about the transient nature of thought and self-development. What's all the fuss there? So great show coming up today. Stay tuned for that. Cathy will be coming in 20 minutes at 1:30. She'll be dialing in, so stay tuned. But before that, let's play a few just solid Irish tunes that you know are pretty darn good and easy to listen to. Welcome to the Celtic Coach radio show. I'm your host, Dermot, the Celtic Coach. Enjoy. Stay tuned. More coming up. All right, let's start with a little bit of this. Ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to the Celtic Coach radio show, an Irish talk show for men and all things manly, and you're on KOWS LP 92.5 if you're listening on the dial in the car driving today, which I know quite a few of you are, and if you're sitting in the office with the feet up and the door is locked because you don't want the boss coming in, you're listening at KOWS.FM. F for Frank and M for Matilda. That was meant to be a cow. That's about the only special effects we'll have on the show. All right, our next guest. I'm going to start off. With a little quote about this next guest. Now, Nelson Mandela said that there's so many men and women who hold no distinctive position, but whose contributions towards society has been enormous. Well, our next guest is such a lady. Her name is Cathy Casey, and she is just a beautiful lady inside and out. She's an international training consultant. She's been training the three principles for over 20 years. She's worked with Fortune 500 corporations, medical centers, psychiatric residential facilities, and she still has all her marbles. Pioneered the first principle-based program in the Santa Clara County and in the San Quentin prison. A very, very brave lady. Catherine's passion and vision is to reignite the resiliency and wisdom in all persons and in any environment. And I'm pretty sure she's going to enlighten you and probably reignite you. If your spark has gone out, then Catherine's going to reignite it today, but no pressure. I was thinking, if you put Wonder Woman and Maureen O'Hara together, you'd probably get Cathy Casey. Wonder Woman, of course, for the boundless energy, dedication to duty, courage to just jump in, be in over her head, and just keep on ticking. And, of course, Maureen O'Hara for the fierce and feisty, gentle Irish grace, and, of course, the gift of the gab. Please welcome to the studio and to the show the lovely Cathy Casey. Catherine, hello there.
I can't stop laughing.
Well, it's always good. It's always good to start with a laugh.
I'm telling you. Thank you. That was the very best introduction I've ever had.
Beautiful. Now, are you hearing me pretty clearly, Catherine?
Clear as a bell.
All right, yeah, and we're hearing you beautiful too. All right, Catherine, let's get the important stuff out of the way first. Where the hell in Ireland is your family from?
Well, the last I heard, County Cork.
Yeah. And
we're still trying to track down enough records to see where my grandfather's from. That's my father's father. So, but that's where the last I heard in our investigation, that's where we're from.
Yeah. Now, do you know if they took the O out of Casey when your father came over here?
You know, I don't know that.
Yeah.
I don't know that.
A lot of the the Macs and the O's when they came over on what was called back then the coffin ships, because a lot of Irish people never made it to America.
Yes.
Because of the conditions and disease and all that stuff. But they when they came to the port, Ellis Island, a lot of the names were like Macs and O's. And they were just, hey, we're going to shorten this name. For America, that's way, way too long. Instead of Casey, you're just called Casey. Or MacDougall was Dougal. This type of thing went on. It was quite fascinating.
And I'm sure at the time they didn't care. Just let me get through, Call me whatever you want.
Yes, get them in and get them through as much as possible. Anyway.
Yeah, my grandfather's a trolley car driver in Boston.
Not go away.
Yeah. That's how he got his first job when he came over.
Yeah. Well, now did you?
And I believe he had to pay for that, to get a job on the. But that's how it worked back then.
It must have been the Italians that were running that trolley car business. There was a lot of that going on. The Italians ran it. Nothing against Italians. I love them all. I know none of them, but I love them all. Now you grew up in Chicago, did you?
No. I grew up in Boston.
In Boston,
Irish.
Yeah.
Oh, Boston Irish. Oldest of 10 kids. Boston Irish Catholic to the core.
And you only had a small Catholic family of 10?
Yes, and I'm the oldest.
Yeah. Oh, you're the oldest. Now, how many brothers and sisters did you have?
Yeah, and my dad lived to his 97.
Oh, my God.
He passed away a couple of years ago.
Oh.
And, it's 5 girls, 5 boys.
Oh, for God's sake.
Yeah.
That's
good
amazing.
Irish Catholic family.
Yeah, we had 7 now in our family, and my mother raised all of us. We had, I have to think about it. If I was living in Ireland, I wouldn't think about 7, but being in America, 7's a big number. In Ireland, that's just kind of like something you did on the weekend.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
But 2 brothers and 4 sisters, so not as many as yourself.
Wow.
But a good Irish Catholic family.
So now, I'm the matriarch right now.
Oh, you're the there's a lot of pressure on the matriarch.
Yeah, I'm the matriarch.
My mother,
loving it.
My mother passed away a few years ago, being the matriarch, and it was very fascinating, Catherine, to watch what happens to a family in terms of when the matriarch passes. There's a kind of like a discombobulation that happens to everyone. And it's very interesting. Everyone's kind of like really sticking together. But then at some point, we're kind of like we're like the birds in the nest. We all have to leave the nest sometime.
Yeah. Exactly.
Now, and that'll bring us beautifully into our talk today. Talking about being humans, Catherine, you've been doing this work for over 20 years. Now, it's called the 3 principles, but, I mean, you could call it a cup of tea and a smoke. I mean, it's kind of like, trying to call the coffee black. You're not really saying what it is. Could you do in the best Irish gift of the gab, kind of explain to the listeners a little bit, Cathy, what are the 3 principles, and why is it that they've had such an impact on you, and also on the work that you've been doing? I know you're not in the anymore, but you did a lot of
yeah.
work in the prison system, in addiction centres and residential psychiatric centres. Talk a little bit about what they are and the impact they're having.
Mm-hmm. Well, for me, it was pretty. It was like in the morning I saw life one way, in the afternoon I saw it differently. I was actually in school to become a psychotherapist, getting my master's in clinical psychology, and feeling like I wanted to leave the field because it didn't look very hopeful. It was kind of focused on what was wrong with people, helping them manage everything, and my heart wasn't in it. I just didn't see a light at the end of the tunnel for folks. And so, but for, a long story, which I won't go into, I ended up sitting in front of a couple of guys who started talking about how life comes from the inside out, not from the outside in. And, when they said that to me, I'm like, well, what does that mean? Mm-hmm. And what they were pointing to is that we are all thinking beings. So we're all just in thought since the day we are born. We're just thinking beings. And wherever that is, that's the experience you will have, which pretty much debunks the whole idea that my experience is coming from, whether I have a good boss or not, or whether traffic is, good or bad, or, all the things that I thought were giving me my experience. They're basically saying, no, that's not true. Your experience is coming moment to moment through you, through thought. And I heard it. I heard it and I went, oh, for heaven's sakes, because that started to explain my entire life. Because if you don't know that you're in thought and that that's how life is coming, then you spend your whole life trying to manage all the stuff outside of you. Trying to take care, manage and stay on top of, and we do that many different ways. We all have different ways to do that. When somebody said, well, no, it's not coming from out there, it's just coming from you moment to moment through thought, I started laughing out loud in this seminar, and people were looking at me. And I said, well, the joke has been on us because I didn't know it came from me. So basically, it's very simple. We're thinking beings. And wherever thought is, that's what you will get. And I don't worry about, the three principles. It's just a description. Like you said, a cup of tea, oranges, apples, and bananas. Mm-hmm. It's just getting a sense, and we all know this to be true. See, we all know this. Every now and then we know, oh, I was just in a bad place. That's why that happened. We see it. But we don't see it like that's really the deal. Like this is what's really, really going on all the time, whether you know it or not. So when I point people in that direction, such as the inmates or successful people in the corporate world, at first they kind of go, no, that's not true because I am stressed out from too much work to do, and I do feel like I don't have enough in my life, so I need to steal it, or I am so stressed that I need to use drugs to feel okay. See, it looks very compelling. But ultimately, it really is just us in thought. And basically, we're just telling people how the system works. That's all. I'm not telling people they should have a better experience. I just want them to understand where the experience comes from, how that comes about. Yeah. And then all kinds of interesting things happen when people wake up to that.
Now, because the people listening, Catherine, I would hear, and I'm being the advocate for the listener right now, in terms of, oh, yes, I know that it's all the thoughts in my head, but, and what comes in, but
yes.
I have a husband that beats me, or I have that I have a boss that treats me like crap, and I know it's my thoughts. Why is it that just knowing that, hey, it's just your thoughts, why is that not enough for and myself included, why is that not enough, Catherine, for us to just say, oh, okay.
Well, I hear you. Well, see, I've been doing this for how many years? And there are times when everything I know goes out the window, and I will say, that guy cut me off in traffic. Yeah. Don't tell me it's my thinking. I'm really pissed off right now, and I'm going to let him know how I feel, and you don't want to hear what I do. So there are times when I absolutely think it's really that person upsetting me. So I'm not saying, as soon as we realize that it's all just thought, we automatically, everything's wonderful and nice. No, there are times we see it and there are times we don't. But I'm telling you, I was 45 years old, getting a master's in clinical psychology, and I didn't know any of that. So even if you have a tiny sense that thought is what's bringing you your life, even if you have just a small sense of that, that goes a long way. And I don't know how to explain that. I think the soul recognizes that within us. And the more the soul helps us, remember what's really true, that just sort of takes on a life of its own over time.
Yeah.
So, yes, when I get cut off in traffic, it really did happen. The guy cut me off. I got upset. But here's the thing. There are other days when somebody cuts me off in traffic, and I have a different experience. So what accounts for that? And that's what I would have your listeners look at. Are there times in your life where something gets on your very last nerve? Like, think of a person in your life where just thinking about them right now gets you going. But then when you really look at that, there are times when they get to you maybe worse than others. And they're the same people. So what accounts for that? See, what's that little variable? Well, the variable is just where thought is. And so it's something that you don't believe it from your head. You kind of wake up to it and you see the truth of it in your life. So I tell people, I'm not here to convince you. Go find this out for yourself, because it at some level we really do know this is true. But then we have our exceptions, and I do too. I'm sorry, that's the exception. It's not my thinking. It's that person cutting me off in traffic. But my relationship to that person cutting me off in traffic can only come through my thoughts.
Yeah. So you're saying that it's okay to have a butt every now and then?
Absolutely.
It's my thought.
I have
butt.
mine.
Yeah.
I have mine.
It's nice to know we all have butts. That's
hey,
very
we're
helpful.
all in this together.
We're
all the same. We're all human.
Well, no, I like to hear that, Catherine, because I'll tell you now, even someone like yourself who has seen that, like, and I don't mean like you have. It's not that you've intellectually, I get it, Dermot, right? Because that's an intellectual thing. When you say that you've seen that, hey, thought creates everything, and thought, as you say, we live in the feeling of our thinking, and we have a thought, it creates the feeling creates an experience, and that experience, we call reality. We call, hey, that's the truth of what's going on. And all you're saying is the truth of what's really going on is just thought.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Across the board, your life, my life, is wall-to-wall thought.
Yeah. That's enlightening and scary, because
I know
I can't control my thoughts, Catherine, and I try to with mantras and affirmations. And what's your thoughts around trying to control our thoughts?
Yeah.
To be happy.
If you really look at the nature of thought. Okay, so if you look at the nature of thought, and if you could visualize, say you're having a lot of thoughts about something, take your pick. You're having a lot of thoughts about a person, and so they're just in there and they're coming through. They're keeping you awake at night, and we've all had that experience where something it's on our mind and it's on our mind. Now, as soon as we try to stop that, or change it, reframe it, it takes thought to change thought. It takes thought to work with thought. So it's a paradox. So the more you add thought onto something you're trying not to think about, the more it will keep it alive. And it's really funny, because I was told, put your mind to it, work on yourself, try to have better thinking, try to see it differently. In fact, I was trained as a psychotherapist to work with people, work with the content of people's thinking.
Yes.
Helping them have less thinking. No, we want people to see the nature of thought, how thought works. So if you really get how thought works, and you're just caught up in something in your mind, what I know truly now is, okay, I'm in it, oh well, and I don't mess with it. I just let it be, because if you let it be, it will clear itself out on its own, if you let it be. But if you add more to it, then it's like putting, the lid on the coffin and putting the nails in.
Yeah.
It holds it in place.
So you're talking about if I feel down or bad, or I'm kicking myself in the arse, or the self-judgment hammer is out and I'm whacking myself a few times every minute, you're saying instead of turning on the TV, instead of going for a smoke, instead of going for a beer, you're saying that just to sit with that and it will pass?
Yeah, well, I'm not telling you what to do. I'm wanting you to understand what's going on. Mm-hmm. Because you may want to go get a smoke. You may want to go have a beer. See, I don't care what people do. I just want them to understand what's going on. And, and we all will do what we, in the moment, my wisdom may tell me, I need to go take a walk around the block. But here's the difference. It's an in the moment coming from my wisdom to help myself, as opposed to, well, I better take a walk every time I can't deal with myself. So then it becomes like a technique, a way of managing myself, as opposed to just in the moment, I just need to, get out of the house and do something else. See, but ultimately when you understand what's going on, when you have this idea, well, I just need to get out of the house, it's coming from a deeper knowing. It's coming from your wisdom. And it really helps you in that moment. And say it doesn't help. Say you get out of the house and, you're trying to take your mind off things and it's still in there. Well, see, I know, I'm just in it right now. Oh, well. And I just know that because the way thought works, if I leave it alone and I accept my humanity, have compassion for myself, that there are times when, it's just going to be that way, and I don't add more to it, it truly, truly, truly does clear itself out.
Mm. Yeah, I'm laughing here, Catherine, because I got out of the shower the other day, and the neighbour has this big old dog, and it's a huge monstrosity of a dog, very pretty, but very intimidating. And he came to the fence, and God bless him, he was barking. Now he has a big bark. I think he's one of those Great Danes, those big dogs. And he's barking his head off, and I'm trying to be calm and quiet after my lovely shower and, doing the thing and whatever. And so I started shouting at the dog. And as I was shouting at the dog got louder and louder and louder. And it occurred to me now I'm slow, I'm Irish, but it occurred to me after about a minute or two of this nonsense, just to stop barking at the dog and to leave him alone and see what happens. And would you believe it, within 10 seconds, the dog walked away. Now, I think that's what you're talking about, right?
That's exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But it's counterintuitive, though, because,
of course it is.
When we're in a bad feeling or we want to get rid of it, because, see, if you don't know what thought really is, if you think it can do you harm, and so I work with people who have been traumatized in their past or who have done horrendous things. So it's like if any thought about that comes in, they will do anything possible to get rid of it or to not experience it.
Sure.
And so over time, that just shuts people down. But when you realize the nature of thought, like with my dad, he was in World War II. And bless his heart, in his 80s, he was not doing well, and he was getting worse and worse. And so I finally got him hooked up to a good psychiatrist because he wasn't sleeping, and, again, he was in PTSD, shell shock, from World War II still in his 80s. And so after I kind of got him okay, and I kind of pointed him towards what we're talking about now, one day he says to me, Cathy, I used to be terrorized by my own thoughts from the war. They terrified me. And that's why he had to drink, so that he wouldn't be terrified anymore.
Wow.
And when he realized that thought in and of itself cannot harm you, he said, this is the freest I have felt in my entire life because I know what's going on. Now, that's a very powerful thing for him, that he, and I was so grateful that he was able to realize that, because he had been shut down all those years. having witnessed horrible things in World War II. So, again, this is a powerful thing to understand, that thought in and of itself it's like smoke, it's steam, it's nothing. But if you don't understand that, then yeah, you will gear up more in your thinking to somehow protect yourself from the thinking.
Yeah, if you understand if you understand the thought is nothing, then you're good to go.
Yes.
If you don't, then thought is everything, because it's my experience, it's my feelings, it's my emotions, it's that person, it's that thing. I want to come back to something that you said I thought was very, very interesting. You kind of just said it there, but I picked it out. Like we're always trying to get away from our thoughts, and we'll do bad things to get away from our thoughts.
Yes.
So let me ask you now. I know you worked in San Quentin. Could you give us an example of a story there, or the impact of this work that you're doing on someone there that kind of clue us in on what this looks like when somebody gets it, who's in a place like that,
Yeah. Well, I have. There's one that comes to mind. There's so many. In fact, I'm writing them all down. Hopefully, in a few years, they'll be in a book eventually. But there's one guy who comes to mind. He was in the Santa Clara County jail system in their maximum security unit, and young guy, and he was in the class. I did a class once a week. Tattoos covering his face. I mean, the guys have tats, but we're talking like, whoa. When he first came to my class, I was taken aback. Like, whoa, where you couldn't see him for the tattoos.
Yeah.
And so he was very quiet, and he was in the class, and I brought in a visitor. Sometimes I bring people who come in to visit with me, and so this visitor asked the group, well, I'd love to hear how you all are learning about these principles. I'd love to hear from you. So this guy, the guy with the tattoos, he raises his hand. I would like to share. And I said, sure, go ahead. And I had not heard from him the entire time. And he said, well, here's what I'm learning in Cathy's class. He said, when I was 12, and about 11, 12, and 13 years old, my father and my uncle, they were into manufacturing and cooking meth. They were big-time suppliers. And so they made me participate in that. But they also sexually abused me during that time, both of them. And so since that time, I've been in and out of psychiatric wards. I've been on all kinds of medication. I end up, doing drugs and getting into trouble. And what I'm starting to realize is because of the way thought works in me, I've been letting my uncle and my father, I've been letting them abuse me to this day through my thoughts. And I'm not going to let them do that to me anymore. And that's what I've learned being in this class, that I've been making myself traumatized because I've kept those thoughts, and I keep having them every day, and that's why I'm as in bad a shape as I am. Now, wow, you could have heard a pin drop, and the guys were so supportive of him. And so we're talking, that was a very profound insight he had, where he woke up to the nature. Now, I didn't talk about past trauma. I didn't talk about PTSD. I don't talk about specific issues, but he put it together for himself. And so over time, they reduced his meds drastically. He didn't have to be on the psych meds like he was. Mm-hmm. And it was like you could see his face now through the tattoos. Wow. It was amazing. I wish we could have filmed it because you could see the transformation right before your eyes. So that's the power in knowing, and that's just one of so many stories of people who have done really, really, had horrible lives or committed, killed other people or whatever. But when they realize this, it's amazing what they end up sharing or realizing. So I could just go on and on about that.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate you sharing that, Catherine, because I want people to hear that this is not the law of attraction. Oh, no. What you focus on expands, and thought creates your reality, and just focus on keeping your thoughts positive. That's not what you're saying here, and so I really appreciate you clarified that through a story.
Yeah. Because see, that's working with thought after the fact. See, we can start focusing on things, and that's fine too. I'm not saying that doesn't help people. That we shouldn't, think in a certain direction. But we're pointing people to before the fact of thought, and before the fact of feeling, and before the fact of behavior. And that's a whole different ballgame. Yeah,
because otherwise we're and the field. I'm a life coach, Catherine, and the field that I'm in, and God bless me, trained today, is all strategies, tips, tools, processes, techniques. It's all to work with the content. It's all to work with after the, as you say, after the fact, after the thought. And it's hard to do that because I don't know if anyone else does this, but there's about a million gazillion thoughts going through my head all day long, and I'm not consciously thinking those thoughts. So where are they coming from?
Yeah.
Am I insane?
Exactly. But here's the thing, and we're not saying never have a strategy, but here's the thing, we all have, built into us, we have all our answers. And so when we really start to look in that direction, and if we need to come up with something, then that's what's going to start happening. But we'll come up with something, pointing ourselves, getting that from that deeper part of us, as opposed to trying to, kind of work it through and effort it and achieve it, and where we exhaust ourselves. Where we can do this at ease in the moment and be just as successful.
Yeah. Where do you, where is it, this may be too esoteric, Catherine, but what the hell, it's an Irish show, we'll throw it in. Where does our thoughts come from? Like, if I'm not thinking my thoughts, they're coming from, where are they coming from?
If I knew that, I'd be a very wealthy. You're asking the big question.
Yes.
I mean, why are we here on the planet? I mean, I the most that I can see for myself, I'm here to pretty much find out who I really am. Mm-hmm. That's why I'm here. And so, and once we truly get that, that's all there is in life. See, once you feel just at ease in life, everything from that will just take care of itself. So if I'm just connected and in the moment as much as I can be, or if I'm not connected, at least I know what's going on. Life totally, it's different. See, we're here to appreciate life. We're here to love our families and our, friends, and we're here to bring love to the planet. We're here to bring that positive energy. But, we're human, and sometimes we're not connected to it. Mm-hmm. But when people wake up and realize why that is, see, I would want the whole world just to know this. That's the answer. If the world could wake up to this, it would clear up a lot of stuff.
Now, in one line, clarify this, and then we're going to go for a little break. When you say this, Catherine, just clarify that one more time so we get it in there.
That we are a manifestation of this amazing natural intelligence, universal energy that comes through us in thought. So we're able to use this energy to think our way through life and create anything we want through thought. And the more we appreciate that over time, that just brings us at a different level of consciousness. And life just gets lighter, more peaceful, more connected. That's the result of that. And that's how I would put it.
Beautiful. We're going to go for a quick little station ID, Catherine. Hold on just for a moment. Pull that phone away from your ear, because I'm going to just play a little bit of happy Irish music, and we'll be right back. Stay tuned.
Sounds great.
All right, everyone. Welcome back, everyone. You're listening to the Celtic Coach Radio Show, an Irish talk show for men and all things manly. And hello to all the lovely ladies listening from all over the planet. We got people from Europe and Australia listening, New Zealand. So hello, and I hope you're enjoying the show, everyone. You're listening on KOWS LP 92.5 FM if you're in your car. And if you're sitting at home on the internet, it's KOWS.FM. F for Frank, M for Matilda. But you already knew that. We are talking today to the lovely and very talented and very Irish. I was laughing there. You were saying that love is running the show, Catherine, and I remembered the Oscar. In case men are wondering out there, here's the deal with women. Women, as Oscar Wilde said, are made to be loved, not understood. And I think, Catherine, that's kind of like life. Like we're constantly trying to understand and to manipulate and control our experience so that we can be happy, joyous, fulfilled, successful. Why is it, Catherine, me dear, why is it we have such a hard time, and myself included, letting go of the controls? Like we want to control everything. Why is that?
Well, it's interesting because prior to knowing what I know now, I would jump into things. I would jump in over my head.
I've heard that about you. George Francie says that about you. Yeah.
I know. I would be scared like out of my mind. So I would kind of like jump in and try to figure the whole thing out. But inside, I never felt solid. I mean, it was almost like if people really knew I didn't know what the hell I was doing, then all bets were off.
Yeah.
And then
true Irish.
And it was. Yeah, seriously. And then it was George Plansky who actually helped me with this. One time I had this meeting with this very high-level government official, and she was interested in the work I was doing, but she was considering other people to do a 2-day offsite for her entire huge department. So this would have been a big deal for me. So I'm in there with a colleague at the time, and we're in there talking about what we do and how we could benefit their organization and how what we're, blah, blah, blah. And she kept bringing up these other things like, well, don't you think people would benefit from, doing stretchy bands? And don't you think people would benefit from just doing more exercise? And
Yeah.
So she kept bringing this stuff up, and we're like, no. They're going to benefit from what we do. So after the whole thing, she ended up picking the one with the stretchy bands and the exercise, and even mood rings. They were even going to give all the employees mood rings. So,
was this in LA? Where was it? Was this in LA? It must have been in LA.
This is in Santa Clara. This is in San Jose, California.
Oh.
So I am so shocked. My colleague and I, we called George. George, we blew it. I can't believe we blew it. What did we do wrong? We told him everything we did. And I love George because he starts laughing. He's laughing. He says, "Oh, I can't believe it." I said, "Well, don't laugh at us. I really want to know what happened." And he said, "Well, you guys, you didn't listen. You were trying to push your program. You didn't get curious with her about why she thinks the stretchy bands would be helpful or why she thinks mood rings would be. See, you didn't find out her thinking around that. You just kept trying to push your thinking." And, of course, in a nanosecond, we realized it. So I said, "Oh, George, I knew that. I can't believe I blew it." He said, "Cathy, this is what I love about you. You get in over your head. And that's why you're going further than most of the people I mentor." He said, "That's what it takes, getting in over your head, falling flat on your face." And I said, "You mean it's okay if you blow it?" And he said, "Well, you think I was born knowing how to do this?" He said, "Of course it's okay if you blow it." So that's when I saw being attached to an agenda, being attached to, you're going to succeed, or being attached that what you know is the best way.
Yeah.
That's what. So I became fearless after that. After that, I didn't see. That's when the brakes were taken off for me, because now I could get in over my head and still feel that confidence, even if it doesn't make it or something does go wrong or whatever. I don't take it personally. I learn from it.
Now, when you say the brakes were off, Catherine, and you were fearless, and again, I may be asking the same question, but what is it that you know that we don't know that makes you fearless to jump in anytime, anywhere, any place? And it's not just because you're Irish.
Yeah, well, that's part of it. But no, but what that means is that we all have what I would call a safety net inside of us. We all have this limitless source of knowledge, an ability to deal with things as they come, the ability to land on your feet, resiliency, whatever you want to call that. When you truly, with certainty, know that's inside of you, there's another word called confidence. When it's like you have a soul. See, if you have certainty, not from your head, but from that deep part of yourself, then, and you know that's always going to take care of you, then you become fearless. Because I have that to count on.
Yeah. Now I can hear the listeners saying, "Well, how do I get that?"
It's, you know what? It's not how you get it. You're sitting in it right now, but for all just the thoughts going through your head. The only thing between me and pure enlightenment is just personal thought. And we're human. And so we're going to be in our head, and we're going to worry, and we're going to anticipate or second guess or whatever it is we do in our mind. But underneath that, I mean, I remember I was teaching a class of people diagnosed with schizophrenia, believe it or not. That's a whole other amazing story. And when we finally got them to where they could listen for like 5 minutes, which was amazing in and of itself, I drew a picture of the ocean. And I said, now, at the surface of the ocean, it's very choppy, and there's a lot of movement, and the currents underneath that, a lot of movement. But when you get to the very bottom of the ocean, it's like when they filmed the Titanic, when they got that submarine to film the Titanic at the bottom of the ocean. And what impressed me was this very thick layer of dust. And I thought, how could there be this thick layer of dust when the Titanic is sitting in the ocean? Well, down at that depth, the stillness, it's so still. Well, that's what we have inside of us. We have this stillness. We have this pure wisdom. In the world of sports, they call it the zone. Mm-hmm. And we've all experienced it. But what we have to realize, it's there all the time, no matter what. Now, we may be hanging out in the choppy water up at the surface of the ocean, but that doesn't mean the stillness at the bottom isn't there anymore. And see, that's what we need to appreciate, is just kind of wake up to that and realize it and remember it. And so look at your own life. So what I tell people to do is look back on your own life and look at the times when you've gone through something and you've come out the other side. You got through something and you landed on your feet, or, you know, something trivial as you lost your keys, thought they were, you'll never remember, and then all of a sudden you wake up in the middle of the night, you remember, oh, I put them in the freezer, you know, stuff like that. See, we have this resource inside of us that I think we don't appreciate, we don't know it's there, we don't have respect for, whatever you want to call that, but it's there. So that's what keeps me okay, is even when I'm having a hard time, I know that that's still there.
So I kind of hear like we always have this wisdom signal inside of us, but when we turn the thought machine up, we just get noise.
Yeah, that's it. And it's like, well, this is an old metaphor, but you know, when you're turning the dial on the radio, you know, if you're in between stations, it's you know, it's static. But then you hit the station, loud and clear. See, that's how thought works.
Yeah, I see all the millennials. They're scratching their head. A dial? What's a?
I know.
Hey, let me ask you this, Catherine. I had to laugh because I was listening to a recording of yours. I think it was the Michael Neal Supercoach Academy 2000. I think 16 maybe, and in there you were talking about. Oh, and by the way, I passed that message on to Michael. I says, Michael, I said, who's all the people coming on the Supercoach Academy next year? The master teach. He said, and he says to me, I don't know. I said, you don't know? I was a bit, but that's Michael Neal, right? And he says, I want Catherine Casey there, and he says, duly noted, Dermot, duly noted. Let me ask you
I
this.
love Michael.
He's wonderful. He's coming on in November. He's going to talk about his new book, Creating the Impossible.
Oh,
so
fabulous.
I'll send you a copy of it when it comes.
I'd love to hear it.
Catherine, I heard George Pransky say, and I had George here on the show last week, and just a lovely, lovely man. He's like yourself. You could just talk all day long. Do you know what I mean? I think he has a bit of an Irish.
I know.
You know?
I just got off the phone with him. We were just chatting a few minutes ago.
Yeah. It's like the old thing
guy.
of, it's every Irishman's right to be quiet, but who's got the ability? So let me ask you this, Catherine. There's, we're going through our own stuff up here, Santa Rosa, with all the fires and everything, and there's a lot of
I know.
stress.
I've been out of the country. I was out of the country when it started, but it's horrible.
Yeah. Well, you're down. Where do you live now?
I'm in San Jose.
San Jose. So you're down the road. But let me ask you this: a lot of stress and a lot of anxiety. Now, not to belate or make small of what's going on. That's very real. But what would you say, Catherine, to the people who are running around like with who haven't lost their homes, let's say, but just in a lot of stress and anxiety because we don't know what's going to happen? Where does this stress and anxiety come from, Catherine? If you're saying it doesn't come from the fires and from even, we'll get a little crazy here. I'll probably get emails about this, but it doesn't even come from losing your home, the stress and the anxiety. So where does that come from?
Well, I think it's a combination of things, but I think the first thing is. If you're this is how I see it now. Remember, I said we're always in thought. Okay, we're just always in thought. Now, if you don't really know that, know that, then you become at the mercy of your thinking. So it's a human thing to make meaning about what's going on around us. I mean, it's very human to do that. And to the extent that we make meaning something bad's going to happen, or I'm afraid of what will happen. People live in a lot of fear even when they're not in a situation like that. I work with a lot of people who are successful, they're doing great, but they literally think, if they don't keep a certain kind of, way of being going with a lot of stress and effort, if they let go of that they will end up, living under the bridge, homeless, or eventually just disappearing off the face of the earth. So in general, I think we all kind of are wandering around with our worst fear thinking. I know as a mom, I was always worst fear thinking about my son, because when he was born, the first 5 years we're in and out of hospital. So I carried my son in fear, like something bad could potentially happen. And I thought that was being a good parent, that I needed to carry that. So somehow that would protect him. And I found out, well, actually, that's not doing anything for him. It's putting a weight on me. And so I think we innocently don't realize that being in that constant worry mode, I think people don't realize that that's actually doing us more harm than not being in that. But see, if you don't understand that, then it makes sense to be in that worry mode. And it makes sense to have our worst fears, especially when we don't know what's going to happen. So I think it's just over time, we lose sight of, what's really going on. So again, that I can't even imagine what it's like to go through that experience. It's like when I was working with guys locked up in prison, they said, Cathy, you don't know what it's like to be here. And I looked at them and I said, of course I don't know what it's like. Mm-hmm. But I do know that knowing what I know about how thought works through me, how these principles work, I know, thank goodness, that would at least help me be locked up in prison. Yeah. Or if I were in a situation where, there's danger from fires or earthquakes or, hurricanes and all the rest, I would be grateful that I somehow knew that I'm going to get through this some kind of way. And you see resiliency all over the place. See, that's what's so amazing. That's what really amazes me every time you watch these horrible catastrophes, is you see this resiliency that people connect to.
Oh, God.
That's what's so inspiring. I mean, you really see it just everywhere. And so people do rise to the occasion in the midst of losing everything, even losing their loved ones. It's amazing the capacity that's inside of them. So, my heart goes out. I mean, I'm telling you, I'd probably be just as upset as everybody else, of course. But I think eventually, with support from others, it'll help people get through it. It will help people. But in the meantime, people are just doing the best they can, given what they're up against.
Yeah. Given, as you say, given the thinking that they have, they're doing the best they can.
And, like I said, whether you know this or don't know this, resiliency is always there. People slip into that. It's just there. And every one of your listeners know you've all slipped into that resiliency or that clarity of mind or whatever you want to call that. We've all experienced it. So I'm not telling people anything new. It's something we've experienced as human beings.
Yeah, and we're not saying like, hey, no matter whatever catastrophe is going on in your life, you're gonna react, you're gonna respond how you're gonna respond. There's there's nothing wrong with that, but it's understanding where that response is coming from. Do I have that right?
Yes. In fact, for me, when I first heard this, I thought I had 9 lives. I have 9 lives. I've used up 7. I've got 2 more to go. Or I was in the right place at the right time, or I landed on my... See, I never attributed my getting through things as that came from me. That was inside of me, my resiliency. Mm-hmm. I somehow thought it was something out there. The stars were all in the right place, or I never considered that it was really inside of me the whole time until somebody pointed it out to me.
Yeah, that's powerful. And as you said, we all have that. I mean, I just have to look at my mother, who raised 7 of us, and she did it on her own. My old man, little bit like yours, liked to drink and was not around. So,
that's it.
I mean,
it's amazing, isn't it?
I don't know how she did.
And my mother didn't even drive.
Yeah. Well, you look at someone like, I read a quote there from Nelson Mandela or even Viktor Frankl, who found peace and joy in himself while in Auschwitz, while in a concentration camp. So what you're saying is not it's not spiritual whoop-de-doo.
No. I've experienced people who are in dire situations, drug treatment programs, jails, shelters, homeless folks, take your pick. And it really, once they realize, in fact, I look at all of them and I said, the reason why you're still here is because of this. That this has been working for you all along, but you just didn't realize it. Yeah. So, but I think we just forget. We get away from it, and we don't realize. So then we get really busy in our mind. So, we use our mind, our head, to do all the work, which is exhausting and stressful, when actually there's another part of us that will take care of pretty much everything. And we can just use that as needed.
It must be very satisfying for you, Catherine, to I think it was now Sydney Banks is the man who first who discovered this and brought this out into the world back in the 70s, early 70s. Is that right?
Yeah, back in the 70s.
And
he had this huge insight, or whatever you want to call that. And what I love about Sid is he just keeps this simple. This has been on the planet since the beginning of time, but he just makes it simple enough for people to connect to in a very simplistic way, which then becomes very profound. And that's the brilliance of Sydney Banks is, it's very accessible. You don't have to go to India and, sit in an ashram to find peace and all that. That it's here now. It's here now. It's everywhere.
Yeah,
we just need to wake up.
I would absolutely jump on the piggyback and say that the one of the reasons that brought me to this work, and I've done, they call it outside in coaching as opposed to inside out, realizing that it's our experiences are created from our thoughts, which is an inside thing as opposed to not from the outside world. So would it be fair to say then that we're always reacting to our thinking and not to the situation or environment?
Yeah, I mean, we're all just in thought, and so again, if you don't know you're in thought, then you're just going to be at the mercy of whatever thoughts you have. So so you will create something in your mind, like when I gave that example of the guy who cut me off. So I'm creating this whole story about how he's insensitive, he's an idiot. And when I really don't know anything, I'm just making this whole thing up. And then since I created it, I have to believe it, and now I'm off to the races. And the feeling from that is I'm upset, I'm angry. So, yeah, we're doing this all the time. And so we just have to appreciate that we're doing it. Not that it's good or bad, just the fact of it. and
yeah.
Just the fact of it. So when I do that, I eventually I wake up to the fact, well, that was interesting, Cathy. Obviously, you went out, went out there for a while because that's just being a human being.
Yeah. Yeah, I heard you say one time, Catherine, that you had, at some point in your life, you said, I'm done with, how did you say it? You said, I'm done with self-development and improving myself and working on myself. I'm done with all that. Now,
I did. Yeah.
What caused that?
Decision. Well, I was in graduate school in clinical psychology, and of course, you have to work on yourself.
Yeah, it's tiring. It's tiring, isn't it?
Yeah, it
is.
It's very. And finally, I said to myself, all right, that's it, I'm done. This is as good as it gets. I'm not working on myself anymore. This is how I'm going to be, and I just accepted that. And it was soon after that I ended up hearing about these and wasn't looking for it. I was just trying to get a good paying job, and somebody asked me to sit and, to listen to these two guys, and my whole life changed. So I think as soon as I gave up on working on myself, I got to hear this, and then everything changed. It was very cool.
Yeah, so I like that because there's no strategies. You're not telling people, okay, if you do this every morning for 10 minutes, then you're going to find enlightenment. If you practice this technique whenever you're afraid, then you'll be fine. There's none of that in any of these what we're calling the three principles. And I'm going to label it because I want people to look yourself up, Cathy Casey, and also the three principles. I know you have a lot of stuff on YouTube, and there's also then the three principles movies.com.
Yes.
Now, you're an interesting lady. You don't have a website, Catherine.
I know. I'm one of those exceptions.
No, I think it's great. I saw this picture the other day. It was in the newspaper, and it was one of the apostles, or I don't know, one of the angels was talking to God up on top of the mountain, and he was holding this laptop. He was giving it to God, and God looks at him and says to him, "What do you mean? I need a website as well?" All right, Catherine. I know. We have 4 minutes left in our show, and this is usually the time where I ask what's called the three little questions. Would you be up for three little questions, Catherine?
Oh, sure.
All right, and just fabulous talking to you today. Gosh, I talked to you all today. All right, Catherine. If you had magical powers, just suppose you had magical powers, what's one thing in the world that you would change?
Oh, I would want the world to know about this, how we work as human beings. This is under the radar, and when people hear about this, they go, "Why doesn't the world know about this?" And I shake my head. I know. I don't know the answer to that, but if I could wave a magic wand, I would want the whole world to wake up to this, including some of our politicians.
Yeah, and maybe an odd president or two.
But no, seriously, this relieves suffering. Understanding relieves suffering, and that's what Sydney Banks wanted. He brought this to people. He just wanted to relieve suffering in the world.
Yeah, well, it certainly relieved a lot of my suffering through thinking. I'll tell you that. All right, Catherine. If you could, if your son came to you at the end of your life, and you're sitting up there in a bed with a cup of tea and a biscuit, and he says, "Ma'am, tell me, what's the secret to a happy life?" What would you tell him?
I'm telling him now. Life is short. Enjoy every moment of it.
All right, number 3. Whatever that is for you, Catherine, God, source, spirit, innate intelligence, Bob, whatever you call that thing, that energy that's up there or in there or all around. What do you want God to say to you when you reach the pearly gates?
Oh, wow. Good job.
Good job. Now, good job, Cathy, or good job, Catherine?
Good job, Catherine.
With a C.
And he's waving me in.
Very. I want him there with a cup of tea and a cookie, and then I want him to say good job. Catherine, listen, we have about a minute left. Would you take everything that we talked about today and just kind of summarize it? And what is it you want to say as we're finishing up our little conversation? What do you want to say to all the ladies and gentlemen listening out there today?
Well, here's what I would want for everybody is, and I know it's very simplistic, but don't be so hard on yourself. I would want everybody to just accept your humanity and, have compassion for yourself and just appreciate that you're this, just in and of itself, you're enough to be on this planet. You are enough. And when we start to really appreciate that and realize that, then from that, all things start looking different. We start having really loving relationships. But I think it starts at home within ourselves, that we really have to give ourselves a break here, let ourselves off the hook, and just be in your life. And to me, that's what I would wish for everybody.
Beautiful. Thank you, Catherine. And if anyone wants to get in contact with you or find out about what you're up to in the world, Catherine, how do they do that?
My email. That is the best way to get a hold of me.
And what's your email? Throw it out there on the air.
My email, and it's old-fashioned, just like the radio knob. The letters UARE 100 at AOL.com.
All right. UR100 at AOL.com.
That's it.
Catherine, it's been an absolute pleasure. I have to tell you now, I've been looking forward to this interview for quite some time. I've heard you speak on many different subjects, and I really just I love your energy and your enthusiasm and your resiliency, and I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us today, Catherine. So thanks very much.
Oh, my pleasure, Dermot, and thank you for inviting me.
My pleasure. Wishing you all the best. Cheers, and good luck to you, Catherine.
Thank you so much. Take care.
All the best now. All right. Holy moly moly. What a beautiful, beautiful lady. Holy moly. All right. Let's put up a little bit of music and we'll be right back. You listen to the Celtic Coach radio show, an Irish talk show for men, all things manly on KOWS.FM. KOWS, the voice of West Sonoma County, coming to you every Friday. The Celtic Coach radio show, a talk show for men from 1 to 3, interviews from 1:30 to 2:30 every Friday. Stay tuned. We'll be back with more Irish music after this. Bye.